More than ordinances ready. Almost 50 years ago, the Apollo 11 manned spacecraft accomplished an amazing feat when it landed on the moon. Its main computer had 4K of RAM. Technology has advanced so much that the iPhone has over 8 million times the memory of the Apollo 11 computer, with the iPhone clock working 32,000 times faster, and the iPhone's overall performance is 120 million times faster. Do you ever wonder what technology will be in 20 to 30 years from now? Family history and temple work has also changed since the time Elijah the prophet gave Joseph the prophet in 1836 the keys to the sealing power for the living and the dead. The importance of this great work has always been emphasized, but the means have changed. Joseph stated 4 months before he was martyred that the greatest responsibility we can have is to seek after our dead for the sealing of our children and our ancestors. Elder Richard G. Scott taught, "Any work you do in the temple is time well spent, but receiving ordinances vicariously for one of your own ancestors will make the time in the temple more sacred, and even greater blessings will be received." The First Presidency has declared, "Our preeminent obligation is to seek out and identify our own ancestors." Elder Mark E. Peterson stressed, "Be it understood that if we go to the temple and not for our own dead, we are performing only part of our duty, because we are also required to go there specifically to save our dead relatives and bind the various generations together by the power of the holy priesthood. We must disabuse our minds of the idea that merely going to the temple discharges our full responsibility, because it does not. That is not enough. God holds each of us responsible for saving our own kindred dead." To fulfill their responsibility, the early Latter-day Saints faithfully and with great sacrifice built temples in Kirtland, Ohio, Nauvoo, Illinois, and then out west in St. George, Salt Lake, Logan, and Manti. Church leaders as Wilford Woodruff, Orson Pratt, and Franklin D. Richards set the example as they diligently collected information about their ancestors. In 1894, Apostle Richards served as the first president of the Genealogical Society, which has grown from a small office in the upper floor of the church historian to the largest free genealogical organization in the world, with 4,900 family history centers. Many dedicated saints diligently gathered family information, mostly handwritten and often stored in boxes or in large personal books of family remembrances. In 1984, the first personal ancestral file was available for the computer to store information on floppy disks and cassette tapes. This followed up with new FamilySearch in 2006, and then FamilySearch's Family Tree coming available just 6 years ago in 2013. As computer technology today is so much more advanced as it was years ago, so is it also in the genealogy world. With FamilySearch's wonderful searching capacities and its storage memories, along with its many links to helpful sites, makes it truly inspired. Do you ever wonder what family history and temple work will be like in 20 to 30 years? Just recently, FamilySearch introduced the amazing program Ordinance Ready, wherein we can quickly find relatives needing temple ordinances to be completed. Some useful sites are no longer needed. With a few clicks on a mobile device or on a computer, one can quickly find ancestors needing their temple ordinances to be completed. One almost feels guilty that it comes so fast. In order to help find relatives needing temple work completed, Ordinance Ready first searches your own reservation list, then those you shared with the temple, thirdly, those related in the temple file. Then it will crawl your tree 7 to 8 generations back with 4 to 5 down. Finally, then, we'll look at the temple file for those a relative may have added, but not necessarily related to you. Thus, you have the opportunity to help a living relative help their deceased ancestor. Soon, we may be able to help those in our wards and stakes with their relatives. The deceased just meet the requirements to have their temple ordinances done. President Joseph Fielding Smith declared, "It doesn't matter whether your computer is able to complete all the family group sheets for everyone that ever lived on the earth. It remains the responsibility of each individual to know their kindred dead. Even if the work is done, then it is still each person's responsibility to study and become acquainted with their ancestors." In the past, we often had to spend a lot of time finding our deceased ancestors. Now we should spend more time becoming acquainted with them. President Eyring stated that the names you find are of real people to whom you owe your existence in this world, and whom you will meet again in the spirit world. Their hearts are bound to you. Their hope is in your hands. Ordinance Ready should be more than a way to hurriedly get a name to quickly go to the temple and be done. There is more than Ordinance Ready can do. As we help youth and adults with their family history, many seek ancestors to do their temple ordinances for. Here are some steps to also help them become acquainted with their ancestors. 1. View the relationship. View the person on FamilySearch. Note and record potential research possibilities. 3. Note date of birth and events in history during their lifetime. We'll look at an app that can help us. Note the place born. We'll discover FamilySearch's Places Research Program. And finally, note relationships, occupations, and other information. Let's look at 2 examples. From Ordinance Ready, I have 5 ordinances to do. Let's see how we can become more acquainted with Raymond Carter. From looking at the relationship, I see that he's my 3rd cousin's 2-time removed through my father's line. On Family Tree, he was born 113 years ago in 1906 in Brown, Indiana. Using a great history timeline app I've downloaded on my phone, I see that he was born around the first aircraft flight, Model T Ford, and Theodore Roosevelt. Each one of those has links to Wikipedia to learn more about what maybe Raymond experienced. Next one can Google Places or use FamilySearch's Place Research Program. Go to the bottom of the main page to the Solutions Gallery. Type in Place while bringing up the program. There I can learn about where Raymond was born in Indiana. From Raymond's Family Search page, I see that he's a possible duplicate and also buried in the Garland Brook Cemetery in Columbus, Indiana. That is amazing, as I've been there. I did research 2 years ago on his sister, Hazel. While visiting a daughter in Bloomington, Indiana, I drove to Columbus, Indiana. Looked at resources in their wonderful family history library, which is part of their city library, and then went to the Garland Brook Cemetery and uploaded Hazel's headstone onto billion graves. Looking at a possible duplicate and analyzing marriage and other records, instead of being a duplicate, Raymond is a brother to Arthur Raymond, who died 1 day earlier. I wonder if maybe in a car accident. Now when I go to the temple for Raymond, I know much more about him and feel much closer to him. Let's look at another example. From Ordinance Ready, I obtained 5 more relatives to do their temple work for. I am first intrigued with Sheriff William Alexander Nelson. I see that he's my 4th cousin once removed through my mother's Swedish line. I check and add appropriate record hints. Using the Timeline app, I notice X-rays and the diesel engine were first developed, Utah joining the Union, and World War I. So many historical events my relative William must have experienced, but I can't figure out the sheriff title. Using place research, I notice he was born in the northwest corner of Washington State. I decide to go to Ancestry, a partner site, to see if hopefully there might be more information. There I discover an interesting link to United States Officer Down Memorials. There's Sheriff William Nelson, dying from an injury and blood poisoning obtained in an accident while chasing a robbery suspect. Another source describes him as a fearless lawman capturing the 2 Discovery Bay murderers and others. He had served in the trenches of World War I and at the age of 24 elected sheriff. He died at the age of 28, leaving a wife and young son. After reading and attaching all this, I immediately went to the Provo City Center Temple to get his ordinance work done. He deserves way more than I can do. While dedicated research still needs to be done, there are also coming more ways to help do family history and temple work, and we should take advantage of them. Here is an Excel file I use to track the individuals from Ordinance Ready. I note names, ID number, date and places born, through my maternal or paternal lines, parents, information, and research possibilities. It is really true, as Elder Cook stated, because of increased temples and advanced technology, we do live in the most blessed time in all history.